Now go in class and meet Professor Andrew Holden from the University of Bedfordshire, a visiting professor in geography at the Planning and Management of Tourism System Master course at the University of Bergamo, will introduce us the theme of conserving nature through tourism, landscape tourism and protected areas.
And what I wanted to talk about this morning was to integrate some of those different ideas into a presentation of about 15 minutes, which will talk about this idea of the aesthetic in landscape and how that is very important in creating demand for tourism. Because I talked last week about spatiality and I talked about movement between urban landscapes and between natural landscapes and how the cultural construction of landscape is very, very important in terms of determining where we actually want to go as tourists. And the aspect I was particularly focusing on within these lectures with you is about the natural environment and how the cultural constructions of nature are very, very important in determining where we are attracted to as tourists. So I want to talk within this 15 minutes about two particular areas, protected areas. One is a conservation area, which I will elaborate later on in the course in terms of a whole lecture on it. And the other one is related to a national park. And again, we talked about those types of protected areas last week in the last lecture. So this is a photograph of the Kali Gandaki river valley in the Annapurna Conservation Area. And one of the aspects of this particular conservation area is that it is a protected area that has a lot of people that live within it. And so the cultural aspect of the Annapurna Conservation Area also is part of the attraction along with the nature. But we did talk about World Heritage Sites as a form of classification of recognition of areas of outstanding natural beauty, and within those World Heritage Sites, which are designated by the United Nations, the importance of the aesthetic was one of the criteria in actually defining a World Heritage Site. And in tourism, this is particularly important because what we see visually is very determinatory in deciding whether we judge something as being beautiful and an area we want to actually travel to. And that is dependent upon how we construct our images of nature and of the environment. And the Annapurna Conservation Area, what is particularly obvious from this slide is that the importance of the aesthetic is something that is sold very heavily into the tourism market. So it presents itself as being unspoiled, as being natural, as being authentic. It's the authenticity of landscape that is one of the key criteria for attracting tourists to this particular area. And the majority of the tourist market that comes to the Annapurna Conservation Area is from the west. It's from Western countries, the more economically developed countries, and they go there to enjoy the environment, to go trekking in it, walking, hiking, whichever term you want to use, and to explore the area, its nature and its culture. Now the other side of this is that tourism is very important in actually determining sustainable development in this area. So yes, the aesthetic is critical for attracting tourists to the landscape, but it can then be used, what I was saying last week, tourism can then be used as a means of financing not only the management of protected areas, but also sustainable development projects that may want to be developed within them. So, for example, things like forms of sustainable agriculture, hydroelectric power, etc. Those kinds of ideas, or improvements in human development, aspects of education and health. Tourism can provide important financing and economic means to actually achieve that. So the sustainability is very important. That can be realised through tourism, and particularly when working within a model where the overarching body in charge of a conservation area, whether it's a non-governmental organisation, whether it's government, work in cooperation with local communities. So there is very much a participatory approach to determining sustainable development. So the importance of landscape feeds through directly into aspects of sustainable development, and the aesthetic of the landscape is very important in attracting tourists to a particular area. So this is an example from Nepal, the Annapurna Conservation Area in Nepal, a country that is very low in terms of its economic and human development. Again, going back to Annapurna, just to show the gaze of the aesthetic, what we look at as tourists, what we see in the landscape, is very important, not only to attracting us to a place, but also how we actually experience when we are in situ, when we are in the place. How do we experience that particular landscape? So again, this is in the Annapurna Conservation Area, and tourists who get up very early to go and look at the sun rising over the mountain ranges and get photographs of that actually happening. So visual contact with landscape is very, very important in determining whether we decide it is beautiful and whether we want to experience it. So just to finish then this very short presentation that I'm doing in this particular project, I mean, the issues of tourism, landscape and protected areas, that social constructions, how we construct nature, how we construct the natural environment, and the values that we associate with it are very, very important in determining where we go as tourists and how tourism can be used to create sustainability in protected areas and landscape. The spatial aspects of tourism are very, very prominent. I mean, they linkage over distance between home environments and environments we go to as tourists presents a lot of opportunities for sustainability, particularly in destination areas. It presents lots of challenges to them, and also, of course, what I mentioned last week, one of the biggest challenges in the context of spatiality of tourism is a reliance on aviation and the growth of GHG emissions and the potential threat of climate change. And aviation is a growing source of those GHG emissions at a time when other economic sectors are reducing theirs. So this is a big challenge for tourism, the spatial dimensions of it in the context of the natural environment. And it is a double-edged sword, as we would say in English. It presents opportunities both for the conservation of landscape, which is obviously through providing finance, economic resources for the management and protection of protected areas, and for developing sustainable development projects like I was talking about, for human development. So it's very, very important in terms of a potential source of finance for achieving sustainability, yet without the careful environmental planning and management of tourism, you can have a situation where the environmental sustainability of landscape is threatened, and that has two key aspects to it. One is that you then begin to lose your economic resource that is being created through tourism and the association with landscape, and also you lose that as a means of economic potential for the future. For example, you kill the coral reef, then you're not going to have that as a source, as a resource for tourists to come through and for local people to earn their livelihoods from in the future. And you also get into the aspects of the rights of the species to an existence, which is very, very important as well, particularly when we talk things about wildlife tourism and other aspects of ecotourism. Thank you.